Right now, breathing this very air, Earth is home to nearly 8 billion souls. Radiant city lights stretch endlessly, masking the ancient galaxies above our heads. A masterpiece of modern prosperity. We feel invincible, like gods of a tamed world. But what if we turn off the lights? What hides in the dark? Deep beneath our towering skyscrapers lies a terrifying secret. A hidden scar, an era where the fate of all humanity hung by a single, fragile thread. Imagine a world suddenly emptying out, silence, deafening and absolute, swallowing the continents. Over 7 billion souls, erased from the timeline, never given the chance to exist. Only a handful remained, clinging to the frozen earth against impossible odds. Exactly 1,280 individuals. That was all of us, the entire human race, reduced to a whisper in the wind, a fading shadow. They were pushed to the absolute edge, staring into the abyss of extinction, not just for a fleeting moment, but for a grueling 117 millennia. 100,000 years of darkness, where every heartbeat was an act of defiance. Tonight, we descend into that forgotten abyss, to meet the ghosts who refuse to fade. For decades, we blamed a single monster, a titan of ash and fire, the supervolcano Toba in ancient Sumatra. We believed its eruption choked the sky, a global winter that supposedly brought our ancestors to their knees. But science is a relentless hunter, and the truth was hiding deeper. Modern DNA algorithms reading the ancient scrolls of our blood revealed a different story. The Great Vanishing didn't align with Toba's wrath. Toba was a localized storm. The real cataclysm was far older and infinitely more merciless. Welcome to the Mid-Pleistocene Transition. Nearly 1 million years ago, a terrifying shift in the very rhythm of our planet. The ice cycles mutated. What used to be 40,000 years of frost stretched into endless 100,000-year winters. Massive glaciers crawled across the continents, burying forests under absolute silence. Africa and Eurasia, once green and generous, withered into barren, freezing deserts. The game vanished. The water locked away in towering walls of ice. Not a loud explosion, but a quiet, suffocating grip, erasing 98% of us. How does a species evaporate into thin air? Step into the freeze. Today, we wander through aisles of abundance, shelves overflowing, a feast always within reach. We have forgotten the true meaning of hunger, but for the final 1,280, hunger was a constant shadow. The Mid-Pleistocene freeze locked the world provisions beneath impossible layers of frost. Every dawn was a desperate gamble, a search for roots hidden beneath the snow. Look at those hands, trembling, worn by frozen rock, seeking anything to sustain life. Forests that once provided shelter and fruit now stood as petrified wooden skeletons. The great herds of prey had either vanished or migrated beyond the ice wall, tracking footprints in the snow, only to find empty plains and biting winds. Our ancestors had to adapt their diet, chewing on hard, frozen flora. Chemical signatures in ancient teeth reveal a profound shift, a diet of sheer desperation. But nature is not easily overcome. The deep chill seeped into their very bones, and without a way to unlock warmth, the cold was a silent, looming presence. Trapped, surrounded by an endless ocean of white, with nowhere left to run, they were prisoners of the ice, waiting for a miracle or for the end. Have you ever woken up at 3 a.m., heart racing for no reason, staring at the ceiling, a heavy dread pressing on your chest? That feeling is not yours. It is an inheritance. Travel back. Imagine the sun setting, and knowing you cannot make light. For 117,000 years, the night was an apex predator. Without a flame to ward off the shadows, they were completely exposed. Listening to the rustle of dry brush, the deep growls circling the camp. Sleep was a vulnerability. Closing your eyes meant inviting the end. Only those who stayed hyper-vigilant, who trembled at every sound, survived. Their brains rewired in the dark. Fear became their armor. So when the modern night falls and your mind spins out of control, it is just your primal brain doing what it was trained to do, keeping you safe from monsters that no longer exist. But in the frozen purgatory, the monsters were very real. Generation after generation, enduring the pitch black, waiting for dawn. Look closely at the modern man, hiding in plain sight. A quiet corner of a busy room, heart pounding, feeling an invisible threat, closing in from all sides. The walls seem to shrink. The air grows incredibly thin. We call it a heavy psychological burden, an irrational shadow. But nature does not make mistakes. It only creates echoes. The ancestors backed into a narrow stone crevice, holding his breath, becoming entirely invisible, just to endure. When the world is full of giants, being small is an advantage. The freeze response, a brilliant yet desperate strategy. If you do not move, the dark shadow might pass you by. This instinct burned into the deepest layers of our mind. It kept the 1,280 safe. But what happens when the perceived threat never leaves? The mind stays locked in an invisible prison of its own making. 117,000 years of this invisible prison. The cold did not just break bones, it broke the genetic code. We call it a bottleneck, a violent constriction of life. Imagine a massive river suddenly forced through a tiny, suffocating crack. Only the absolute strongest or the most fortunate pass through. The pressure is immense. It alters the very nature of what survives. That is what happened to our ancestors. The extreme environment forced their bodies and their minds to undergo a radical shift. The loss of diversity was staggering. Entire family lines fading forever. But from this tremendous loss, a new, fierce resilience was forged. The weak faded into the snow. The survivors grew sharper, more focused. Homo heidelbergensis, a bridge built over an abyss of ice. Their physical forms hardened. Their eyes adapted to the eternal gloom. The DNA twisted, adapting to the brutal demands of a frozen Earth. They were no longer just surviving, they were transforming. But the Ice Age was a heavy lock, and humanity needed a key. For over 100,000 years, they lived at the mercy of the dark until an accidental strike, a spark against dry moss. Look at the modern screen, illuminating a face in the dark room, a cold, isolating blue glow, keeping us connected, yet completely alone. Now watch the light transform. A tiny, trembling red ember, the first captured flame, the genesis of our true power. It was not just warmth. It was a shield of pure light. The ancient shadows that had hunted them for eons suddenly recoiled. The darkness was forced to step back. The ancestor stared into the flame, seeing a new world. Reflected in those hollow eyes was the distant birth of civilization. The warmth changed everything. It transformed their scarce, tough food, unlocking hidden nutrients, feeding the rapid expansion of the human brain. For the first time, the survivors finally stopped running. The modern screen warms your tired face at midnight. A glowing hearth built of pixels and data. We still gather around the light, just as they did. That first fire was more than just a tool. It was the foundation of our modern anatomy. Raw, frozen provisions took hours of exhausting effort, but the flame softened the harvest, pre-digesting the harsh world. Energy, once spent entirely on survival, was suddenly redirected, flowing upward, fueling the most demanding organ in the human body. Our brains expanded, language began to flicker. In the glow of the embers, the first stories were born. A shared imagination, bonding the fractured tribe. The frozen wasteland was no longer an end. It became a canvas. The vulnerable were taking back the earth. As the earth remained locked in frost, the titans of the old world began to falter. The mighty Meganon and the armored giants surrendered to the endless winter. They fell. Unable to adapt, they vanished into the ice. Look at their massive footprints, fading under the snow. But right beside them, smaller tracks appeared. The tracks of the vulnerable. The naked ape. Step by step, these tiny marks multiplied, spreading out. 80,000 years ago, a magnificent surge occurred. The embers of humanity caught the wind. A staggering 2,000% increase. We surged back. More fires, more voices, more footprints on the frozen earth. We slipped through the narrowest crack of extinction, leaving the fallen giants behind. We claim the future. So here we stand, 8 billion strong, in a world of our own making. Yet, many of us feel completely lost. Wandering through a crowded room, feeling an ancient shadow gripping our chest. A heavy psychological burden. Do not be ashamed of that fear. Do not run from the overwhelming wave. It is not a weakness. It is a profound, echoing strength. It is the ultimate survival code, written by those who endured the long night. Look at the modern crowd, a sea of strangers, moving seamlessly. Now see them for who they truly are. The descendants of the fire makers, the heirs of the ice, the children of the 1,280. The next time you feel overwhelmed amidst the noise of the city, place your hand over your beating heart. Listen closely. That steady rhythm is the sound of an entire species refusing to fade into the dark. A legacy of ultimate resilience. You carry the fire. You are the survivor. Join the Museum of Earth and uncover the magnificent story of us.